But let's move away from news to do with the Comrades Marathon and tell you what's dominating the headlines in the Sunday newspapers. I'm joined now by Tshamano Makhadi, Deputy Chairperson of the South African National Editors Forum. Thank you for your time once again, Tshamano. We're going to start just delving in deeper in terms of the stories, but I want to just show the viewers some of the headlines that are leading this morning. Let's start with the Sunday Times, which is leading with the story, Ministers, in parentheses, Phantom Sitters Panel. So that is their front page. It has to do with the Minister Nobuhle Nkabane and the panel that she's been talking about that she says advised her on the sitter appointments. The Sunday Tribune is leading with a story that says Ramaphosa, Jonas and MTN's Starlink deal. So that story around Starlink and the potential for Starlink to operate and be licensed in South Africa, that continues to be a story that the Sunday Tribune is focusing on. And then lastly, let's show the Sunday World. And their lead story is, and the killings just won't stop. So that's the story that has to do with at least 11 more women having been killed in the country since the brutal murder of Olorato Mongale. So let's go back to the Sunday Times then, Tshamano. Let's start with that story. Ministers, quote unquote, Phantom Sitters Panel. I saw I think most of us have watched that debacle. There was that hearing before the Portfolio Committee on higher education, and that utterly shocking appearance by the minister. She kept talking about a panel that advised her, that helped her to make the decision and trim down the names to the names that she then produced as the final list of people that were going to be appointed as chairs of the sitters. But the Sunday Times has got some new reporting because she absolutely refused in Parliament to reveal who these people are that were advising her. A bit of reporting from the Sunday Times this afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon, Tulas. You're right. Mr. Nkabane appeared before, Parliament just a few days ago, and one of the questions that was asked was around the names of the people who advised her in the appointments of the sitters, board chairs, and she was not in a position to give those names. And I know that one of the things that, she pointed to was the POPI Act, but there are those that are now challenging this to say it is in public interest, and for an important matter such as this, you gotta make sure that you tell us exactly who are those people. Yes, indeed, you are also right to say a meeting was also then, called by the President, Cyril Ramaphosa, and I think more than anything, the President wanted to sort of understand why she responded in the manner in which she did, and then she was then asked to submit a report with those names. And I guess we wait and see what she's going to do next. But what we also know, as it is now reported in the Sunday Times today, sources from within are already saying, in actual fact, there was no panel. Something which we all just going to have to wait. And if at all there's any truth to that, I wonder how the minister is going to come out of this one.
Yeah, in fact, Tshamano, to be quite honest, if it turns out, as the Sunday Times is reporting, that it is a phantom panel, there's absolutely no panel. She kept referring to a panel, but none exists. She would be in even more hot water than she is already with that performance, having to account to her boss, the president. So if it turns out that she lied to Parliament and talked about a panel that just doesn't exist, she would be in even more trouble. I mean, the MPs were absolutely frustrated with her, were they not? I mean, I remember the likes of Sihlelonzi of the EFF kept pressing and trying it from a different angle, but she just wouldn't come out with any of the names.
She was not budging at all. I mean, she was not budging to us, and more than anything, they really wanted to know who are these people who are advising you. And you can just imagine, obviously, it sort of gets a little bit, heated in that, spare of a moment. But one thing that I also observed to us in answering some of these, tough questions, it's not just about the audience in the room. You also have to be thinking about the general South African public. It's probably something that the minister is still going to reflect upon. And I know that she has already released a statement basically, asking for an apology in the manner in which she responded. But I think just in the main, the point for me is just to say when you are in public office, particularly in parliament, of course, you're dealing with politicians or fellow politicians. There are those questions that you are going to find them very uncomfortable. But it's always important that you keep your composure, you make sure that you answer to the questions that are, put forward.
Just lastly, as we move on to the next next title for us to consider, Tshamano, one thing that struck me was how cohesive that committee has been, right? Despite the tensions and the removal of Sihlelonzi a few weeks ago during one of the meetings, but actually on that day, on the 30th of May, they showed a great degree of unity across the aisle. Where conduct was unacceptable, it was condemned across the aisle, whether it be it the ANC or the DA or the EFF or any of the other political parties. That's one of the features that stood out for me. But let's continue with that theme of, a leader of an institution, a public official, a woman being in a spot of bother. We move from Nobuhle Nkabane to Shamila Patoi. And that story of Shamila Patoi, the NDPP National Director of Public Prosecutions, dominates in both the Sunday Times as well as the Sunday Tribune. The Sunday Tribune has it as one of their stories on the front page. And this has to do, Tshamano, doesn't it, with the comments that Shamila Patoi has been making about, people that she says have infiltrated the NPA, prosecutors who don't really have the interests of justice at heart, but are sometimes colluding with criminals to collapse cases. That has landed her in a spot of bother as well.
No, absolutely. Tulas, she, made those remarks and later on had to retract. And I know that as it is reported here, a meeting between her and, Minister Mamuluko Kubai, and to simply then, retract after making such, statements. Of course, it raises more questions as to what is going on, because as the saying goes, where there is smoke, there's fire. So obviously, in this case, people are simply just, asking themselves what is really happening. And now that she is now distancing herself from that, where does that leave her? The information that is already, out, are South Africans really just going to take it that it was one of those and let's then move forward? But something that leaves much really to be desired. One really just wonder, what was that all about? Is there, more that we still have to know about this? Tulas, I guess again, it's just going to be a wait and see, but something which I find it very strange.
And also another story on the Sunday Tribune that continues to dominate, Tshamano, is that of Starlink and the potential of its licensing in South Africa. We saw ICASA finally moving on the operations of Starlink that had started in some respects in South Africa through certain service providers, even though Starlink itself remains unlicensed in the country. So there was that movement, but there's also the business element of it. I see that they are talking about Ramaphosa, Jonas, and MTN's Starlink deal, and they're talking about Starlink will still need to adhere to the country's laws.
No, correct. And we know that this has been a debate over the last few days, especially after President Ramaphosa returned from the United States of America with the meeting with Donald Trump. And I know that because of the the gazette that was then issued through Minister Malatsi, there have been a number of questions. But to the point around Ramaphosa and Jonas, obviously we know that Jonas is the chairman of MTN. But a point that he makes is that if at all Starlink was to be given business, they will have to adhere to all the rules and regulations in South Africa. And I think that is really the sticking point to us, because in the main, I think it's really about setting precedents. If you were to bend and do this to try and accommodate Starlink, how are you going to handle this going forward? And that's really where the issue is. But it will be really, again, interesting to watch these developments and see what then happens. I know for a fact that there has been a serious backlash against Starlink, particularly the owner, Elon Musk.
Yeah. And lastly, on the Sunday Tribune, Tshamano, I think it's worth lifting up this particular story. Pistorius's return to sport, quote unquote, disrespects Steenkamp's legacy. And there's been political commentary there coming from the United Democratic Movement, the UDM's women's organization, weighing in on that. I suppose this is going to raise fierce debate around issues of justice and sentencing in particular, that, what's appropriate, what's an appropriate sentence where a person has killed another person. He went to prison, did Oscar Pistorius. He's now out, and there's now this talk of him potentially returning to sport.
Yeah, Tulas, a matter that raises, serious questions, particularly when you think of a case like that, which was, broadcast all over the world. I mean, as far as I can remember, 2013, some researchers comparing that to the story of Nelson Mandela in terms of media coverage, with so many media houses, let alone the journalists that covered, the story. And with these kind of, developments, it just raises, questions, I guess, also with our, justice system, and again, those that, of course, are related to the victim. I just wonder where it leaves them, really. Yeah. But very, very unfortunate, I really must say.
Yeah, and you can expect that the debate will absolutely rage about sentencing. Let's go to the Sunday World, Tshamano, and talk about their front page. The Sunday World doing the important work once again of putting faces and names to the women that have been killed in the recent past in our country, and saying with the headline, "And the killings just won't stop," and talking about 11 more women that have been killed in South Africa since the brutal murder of Olorato Mongale 2 weeks ago. It really hit me when I saw that story, Tshamano, because it reminded me, there was this incident, the woman who was killed allegedly by her brother, and that incident happened in Gapogweni in Mpumalanga. Yes, it got coverage, but it's not a story that's dominating the headlines. And that tells you that on any given day, we have a major incident, a killing that on any given day could be, in a normal society, could be shocking everyone to the point of this is the only issue that we focus on. But yet you have it as one of the many stories that are playing themselves out.
Yeah, correct. Tulas, you can just imagine from Africa Day, May 25 to just yesterday, 11 women having been killed, particularly after the much publicized story of Olarato Mngale. I know we spoke about it last week. But it's just unbelievable, completely unbelievable, Tulas. And again, I want to, align with those who say this really has to be some kind of a syndicate, because if you look at it, it's not just in one particular province. You and I would remember that about 2017, 43 women were killed in a space of 3 months just in Gauteng. We were talking just one province. But now, according to this report, it's not just one province, as we know. Limpopo is mentioned, Gauteng, the Free State. So really, for me, it questions. And again, I really just have to say this, Tulas, our intelligence. And I'm just asking myself, where is our intelligence in all of this? As the headline says, and the killings just won't stop. You ask yourself daily, who is next? And the reason I talk about our intelligence, what are we gathering? What kind of information are we gathering, on the ground? When is this going to stop? And what will it take to stop it? Because that's the thing. Because some kind of action, a concerted effort, really has to be put forward in the scourge that we have seen over the last few days.
And it absolutely feels to me, Tshamano, as a parting shot, that it may be time to revisit the conversations we had a few years ago in the national strategic plans that we put in place, because I feel like an important conversation was had at that point that is worth refreshing and revisiting and seeing, are we still on track with the things that we agreed on, that were going to be an all-of-society approach, multi-sectoral in terms of the response. But let's leave it there for this afternoon. I've got to thank you for your time once again. That's Tshamano Makhadi, who is Deputy Chairperson of the South African National Editors Forum, weighing in on some of the key stories in today's headlines.